Obviously, other quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, even Dalvin Cook getting in there and causing a little bit of buzz for the MVP. If you had to take a guess right now, who would be the other player, I don't want to say quarterback, who would be the other player that could really cause a threat to Mahomes winning the MVP?
Probably Rodgers. At the beginning of the season, I was on the Russell Wilson
Hmm.
train for MVP just because, I mean, he was, I think, had better numbers than even Mahomes did in 2018 through the first 4 weeks of the season.
Well,
So that was just kind of undescribable because that hadn't been done before in NFL history. He passed Mahomes and Manning, I think, for the best start to a season. But
mm,
then the turnovers started piling up, and so that hurt the Seahawks in general in their win loss column, and
yeah.
I think it hurt Russ in the MVP race. And Aaron Rodgers, I think, is probably the next up just because his stats are just so similar to Mahomes right now. He did
Hmm.
have a pretty off game. I think it was against the Bucks a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
and their offense only scored, I think, 10 points, and that's not going to happen to Mahomes. So
Mm-mm.
if you're looking at complete seasons, if it comes down to it, and they're both very similar, voters might look at that one game even
Yeah.
and and throw it towards Mahomes.
Yeah, I could see that. You look at Aaron Rodgers' numbers, he's got 2,253 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, very similar touchdown to interception ratio as Mahomes does. I believe Mahomes leads the league. I think it's a 0.3% touchdown or his interception percent is 0.3%, which is kind of like the inverse of touchdown to interception ratio, I guess. Again, not a big numbers guy, not a big math guy, but I know he leads the league in interception percentage. Russell Wilson, the guy that you mentioned, who has been, slinging the ball 2,541 yards, 28 TDs, but 8 interceptions. And that's not counting the fumbles.
Yeah.
He's having a fumble problem too. I didn't look up the fumbles. I'll do that when while you're talking.
Yeah. Russell Wilson, like what he does is he's kind of like Mahomes in that he likes to extend plays. They haven't had the best offensive line in Seattle for quite a while, actually, but seems like Wilson just kind of rolls around, makes things happen. He's also another guy that on third and long, he just makes plays. But sometimes when the offensive line can't hold him for long enough, he's going to be fumbling the ball. That's just something that has happened throughout Russell's career. Another reason probably why he hasn't ever had a single MVP vote, which is very crazy. I don't know if you heard
Hmm.
that stat or not.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson has never had an MVP vote in his entire career for how good he's been. It's kind of crazy. I'm sure he'll get a vote this year, but I don't think that it's going to be quite good enough, despite his pace being to throw for over 50 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, I just looked up. He's got 3 fumbles this season, which, if you're a quarterback, that's not a very good look. But it's
Yeah,
kind of tough because that's what 8, 9, 10, 11 turnovers, and I believe he's got, ooh, is it 6 in the last 2 games? So over
yeah,
half of his turnovers have come in these last 2 games, and you've kind of see his stock, I guess you could say, his MVP stock has started to fall. But I think that's kind of the narrative this year. ESPN's Greenberg, I forget his Mike Greenberg,
yeah.
Mike and Mike, duh. But he was on Get Up, and this is what he had to say about the MVP race. And he even talked about Patrick Mahomes and when it comes to everyone else in the MVP race. So here's what he had to say about this season's MVP.
What has happened in all of sports is that MVP has become sort of a narrative award. It's the reason Michael Jordan didn't win it practically every year during his career. It's the reason LeBron James probably should have 2 or 3 more regular season MVPs. There's a narrative here. We want to give it to other people. And the narrative this year, at least in part, is it's Russell Wilson's turn. He's never even gotten a vote. And I'm all good with that. But here's the reality. For the next 15 years, Patrick Mahomes is the MVP. He's the best player in the league, and he's the most valuable. So my suggestion is, let's rename the award the Patrick Mahomes Award and just present it to the next most valuable guy. I think it actually makes sense. It'll alleviate a lot of these problems, and that way you don't have to give him the MVP every single year and continue to pursue the narrative, which is what this award has been.
So I love what Greeny has to say there about the award being named the Patrick Mahomes Award. It won't happen, obviously,
Yeah.
but it is something to think about because we've even talked about on this podcast. I might not have talked about it with you. how Mahomes kind of already has voter fatigue, kind of like the LeBron James effect, how LeBron James doesn't get the MVP when he should be getting it every year because he's the most valuable player, because any team he goes on automatically becomes good. If the
Yeah.
Chiefs don't have Patrick Mahomes, they still have other weapons, but the Chiefs go down a considerable amount. And I think you could still say the same thing about Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. But I think Patrick Mahomes is just so head and shoulders above these guys that he's really only compared to himself.
I totally agree with you. It's kind of wild about what, like you said, it's kind of like the LeBron James effect. Like he's so good, he goes whatever team goes to, he's going to be in the playoffs. And the Chiefs, like you said, they do have weapons. They have Andy Reid. They have Brett Veach, who makes good moves. But without Patrick Mahomes, they're probably going to the playoffs still every year because that's just what Andy Reid does. But they're
Mhm.
not making it to the Super Bowl. They're not
Right.
winning a Super Bowl. That's just you got to have that quarterback that can get you over the top. And Patrick Mahomes already proven that he can do it.